I want to touch on another thing that is often used to defend exams, which is they tell you if you have an exam, you feel forced to study and to do your work. And I think there are many other ways that take the stress off an exam that still make you work a lot. And I speak from experience because I have a biochemistry teacher. Shout out to Professor Stockwell. I have a teacher here who has a very non-traditional way of teaching, and he has this from. He takes every class that he teaches every semester. It's always biochemistry. I think it's always biochemistry. And he takes his class as an experiment to constantly improve his way of teaching. And so I think he started once assigning people textbooks, for example, to read and learn the material, and then tested them on it. And then the next class, he gave them all the theory and videos that he made himself of all the things that people needed to know, and gave them the same exam. And it turned out that people watching videos on the same exam, on the same theory, did a lot better than people that didn't watch the videos but had the textbook to read. And then there are like weird combinations of things that he made as well. And for example, from him I have the idea of making an exam that is 24 hours long, because his exams are 24 hours long and you can work on them with teammates. And the problems are problems that you cannot look up in the notes that you have, or the things that have like he taught you, but just in general, things that you have to learn. And he makes sure that you understand the material by taking quizzes every single week. And you may think, oh, the quizzes are put a lot of pressure on you. And it's not really like that, because the quizzes are quite short and they're like short assignments. And so it's not like studying for an exam, which is a lot more stressful. And you also have a lot more time. Like, the deadline, but it's up to you how you want to spend that time in order to submit it to the deadline. So you have this whole time given, and at the end of the day, there is a deadline that forces you to do these things, but it's not like focused on those hours. Like, you can be submitting answers constantly and changing them constantly, and then when the deadline comes, it comes, and you continue. But it's a way of ensuring that you do your work. And what I mean by that this is maybe not the best model ever. Maybe someone comes up with a model afterwards, but it just proves that there are many other ways in which you can teach. And I don't know, in general, if there is a professor watching this, I would just encourage to change the traditional way of teaching from a super stressful midterm, which all of them are super stressful, and every final is super stressful, to a more lengthy exam, a way of evaluating you that is a little longer, and gives you a little bit more time to think, that takes away the stress, but still evaluates you.
I don't know, I think it's a pretty complex problem. Like, I was just most recently thinking about how, well, what is the whole point of all of this? So you have the idea of, like PSETs, midterms, whatever it is, the whole function of them is to make you revise the material, look at it over, or learn it for the first time if you've just been skipping lecture or whatever, and actually like apply it in a way that counts towards your grade, which matters, because that's how people will just generally assess your rough ability at the subject when you're applying for jobs, where it matters, and because you don't want to hire people who don't know how to do things. But there's also another problem which is worth mentioning, which is from the professor's perspective again. Some professors actually just don't care, in the sense that they're here to do research, and there's a lot of pressure on them as well, because they have the whole like publish or perish thing, where there's like this large pressure to continuously churn out papers and new research in order to be valuable for the university as like an asset. Because if you really look at it coldly, in a way, university is just a business. It's taking people in, giving them this promise of qualification, and giving employers the promise of qualification from the students that they produce when they're then going to be hired for jobs. So in a way, it does make sense for them to kind of just do what's easiest for them, which is just quick exams, which will test like general understanding, but more knowledge than understanding. But also, I think there's something we should mention maybe as a new topic, which I just thought of, is this idea of knowledge versus understanding, in the sense that, okay, if you truly deeply understand something, then I think you could probably teach it to people. Like I would use that as a fine definition for, okay, if you understand a concept, you can teach it to a wide array of people who have different backgrounds, different abilities, explain in different ways. Knowledge is just knowing how to do something. And sure, a lot of the time these days you can Google things and find out knowledge, but there also does take some level of understanding to make sense of that knowledge. And I think exams put more pressure on knowledge than understanding because of the whole time pressure thing. You can't take the time to lament and whatever. So yeah, I think there's that to think about as well. Like what are they trying to get you to do here from their perspective?
Well, as I said, I don't think exams are trying to get you to do anything other than, they're not trying to get, there's just a way of having a system to grade people, because you need to distinguish people in some way, right?
Right, in a relevant way of knowledge, maybe more than understanding. Yeah,
exactly. But as I said, I think it's also a very, and you said it too, it's like a lot about efficiency, right? The exam. Yes. I don't think there is a certain ideology behind an exam that says like this is the way to get the point across. I don't think that's the point of an exam. Otherwise, I think we would have moved on from that a long time ago. My critique mainly is it's archaic, right? This way of going into a class, have an hour, and then like this whole thing, like you study for a week, the material that you revise. I think it's archaic because today we're living in an age that has a lot more information that they did 100 years ago. We have advanced a lot in science, so you have a lot more material to your disposition to solve certain problems. And we're at a point where the things that you learn are a very small sample size of a whole thing within the field that you're learning. And I think you should be allowed to have access to these things. And obviously having access to these things also has a new frontier, because this age of data also means like the time is not focused on, like, you don't take time to be efficient, right? Because you're like in these exams, you're trying to work for a week to be the most efficient in the future. Mm-hmm. I think nowadays you're not working to be the most efficient. You're working to be the best person at looking at the data that you really need. I think that's a much more critical skill now than efficiency, right? Like you have this whole information, how can you take? Because nowadays, like, you can make a computer think for you, right? You don't need to think like efficiently about how to solve an integral. Yes. You can give this to a computer nowadays. So nowadays, this attention, I think, needs to be focused more on getting the information from all this source. And so I think it's just an archaic teaching style. And this is what I'm critiquing mainly in exams and everything. Yeah. And in terms of knowledge, I think sometimes knowledge is a very interesting concept, because it's an interesting concept because I think creativity is based on knowledge. See, if you have a very big problem, right? Like you're trying to, and this is how I define creativity for myself, is if you have a very big problem and you don't know how to solve it, right? It's constantly, and if you really care about the problem enough, it's constantly in your subconscious. At least for me, it's like in my subconscious, and I keep thinking about it. And sometimes I think actively about it, then I think subconsciously about it, because it's something that's unresolved all the time, so it pops up in my head quite often. And when you have a lot of knowledge on the topic, right, you can connect. So when you have seen so many different things related to the field, your mind by itself starts to create connections between the things it has seen until it truly understands something. And this allows you to build something new on the things that you have already seen, on that knowledge. And then I think there comes a creative idea. So I think knowledge is the baseline to be creative. But knowledge is not the only thing, right? Because you need that extra step to be creative. And I think, well, I mean, like the understanding and knowledge, like that's the ground level for me. Like you have a very deep understanding of what you're talking about, and then you are presented with a problem. And then the question is, what do you do with that understanding that you have to solve a creative problem, right? And I think what we should focus on nowadays in exams is on creativity, on you have this whole knowledge, how do you solve this problem, and take as much time as you need, right? Within a logical time, as we said before.
Realistic, yeah.
But take and then evaluate from that knowledge, right, what you need in order to solve this, make the creative step to solve a problem. And I think that's much more relevant in the world today, in research, and in all these things where you have so many resources available, that getting knowledge is not a problem. The problem is how you get to the solution from the knowledge that you're given.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all pretty interesting. I think one thing you said which made me kind of smile is like, you captured the perfect example of how knowledge is not understanding, in the sense that, yeah, if a computer can do an integral, a computer does not understand integration. It just does it.
Right.
So, like, yeah, checkmate. But anyway,
Bam!
yeah, I think that's why I value CS as a major so much, because I feel, well, a lot of people are spending a lot of time memorizing things. It's kind of expected, or maybe expected or understood, that you don't know everything, but you understand things, you know where to find things versus things themselves. Like, for instance, in this recent interview I had, this is what I want to say is also one of the pros. I think, a case for exams and their time pressure and your lack of internet access, actually, because, I was programming this thing with this guy, and I just wasn't sure of a few methods, whether the name was something or whatever. Okay, and that's like trivial, fine. You can just Google the method belonging to that object and then find the actual syntax. But like sometimes though, the syntax does actually relate to a deeper understanding of how the thing works. And if you can or can't do something, that relates to your understanding of it. So it's not just as simple as the syntax itself or whatever. So that's cool. I can't remember my greater point. But I really enjoyed what you were saying. I was thinking about it a lot.
Yeah. That's what we do at Puzzle, by the way. Make you think. Best podcast in the whole world.
What was the other one? I had something to do with chess to say. Oh, yeah. I guess as well, because computers are so much faster at knowledge, and you say integrals or chess or whatever. It's just solving well-defined tasks. Is basically what it is. Like that's because I'm doing AI at the moment, and we built like a computer to solve Othello, right? Or not solve in the sense that it's like complex. It's too complex for computing power to brute force. But if you play my program, like you'll fucking lose unless you're a pro at this game. Or what else did we code? We did the 8-tile game.
No.
It's like you have a 3x3 grid, and you have tiles numbered 1 to 8, and then one empty space. And you have to, by moving tiles using the empty space, order it 1 to 9. We coded a thing to do different search algorithms, like depth first, breadth first, and then A-star search with heuristics and stuff, to basically find a solution. Actually, with A-star, it's optimal given some other restrictions. But the point is, this is just a task which you could be given on an exam, and we were given something similar in our exam in the sense that we had to return the output of these search algorithms on some input. That can just be done by computer. But then what was cool about this exam as well, though, is that, the time pressure didn't help, but it kind of did. I don't know. I'm kind of for the time pressure sometimes. And the reason was because for this exam, you had to, know all the outputs of the search algorithms, which is trivial, right? Or not trivial, but just knowledge as we're defining it. But then from there, he was saying, okay, well now let's say this heuristic constraint is now no longer the case. Then how does this affect? Does there exist a search algorithm in the list of search algorithms which could yield this path as output, given if we change this heuristic of an estimate of cost reasoning? And the point is, there wasn't enough time to actually find a numeric solution which would be okay with some algorithm and write the answer. So you were forced to literally just guess with your intuition, which is basically understanding, right? The time pressure to force you to you have to make a quick decision. The exam
I have an answer.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So I think there is understanding in this for sure. And I think essentially what happens is you're making your subconscious work when you're under time pressure. Because then it's you're forcing your you're forcing your true knowledge to pop up, right? Immediately do this. The thing is, I'm not against, let's define time pressure, all right? I'm against a time pressure of an hour and a half, because I don't think that is enough time for you to be solving a thing that really requires creativity on a larger scale.
Okay, that's interesting.
What I'm saying is, I'm for time pressure. Remember the example I gave of Stockwell giving us 24 hours. You're still working within a day. It's not like you have 5 weeks to complete your assignment. Yeah. It's within a realistic time frame. But an hour and a half is just not enough for me. Still, I think it's good to have a deadline. Because I do think deadlines make you work, right? For example, I gave the example of quizzes as well, right? You have a quiz and you administer your time in whichever way you want, but you do have a deadline, right? And it's like giving yourself these deadlines to do things, totally. And like if you don't do it, like maybe you have to cram at the last time, but that's on you.
Right.
And then you're gonna force your subconscious for sure. Well, no, I think this is where we're gonna close our beautiful episode. Snipperoonie snipperani. I hope you guys enjoyed our background picture, but also our nice conversation. Watch all the other episodes on our channel because they're freaking insane. I don't even know what you're doing if you're not watching them. All right. All right.
Recording them.
And okay. All right, my people. Oof. I'm gonna. Should we finish this episode in the best way possible?
How so?
With a mic drop. Hi there. If you loved what you just saw, and even if you didn't like what you just saw, subscribe to our channel, like our video, and if you for whatever reason didn't see the first part of our video, then make sure to check that one out too, as well as all the other episodes on our channel. Nailed it.